So, welcome to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. I'm Catherine Tomlinson and I started an eco conscious pottery company called Oxford Clay. Now, at Oxford Clay, I don't just make pottery, I also make resources such as books and courses and information for other potters who want to be more eco-conscious in their pottery practice but maybe don't know where to start or can't find out the information they need. So that's what this podcast is all about. It's about sharing everything I've learned along my eco-conscious pottery journey with you, and I can't wait to get started. So let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Oxford Clay Pottery Podcast. Now, I don't know about you, but I do love a good New Year's resolution. I'm like, maybe it's because I'm a Virgo, I don't know, but I love kind of that thinking about things, reflecting on things, and thinking, what do I want, moving forward, in my life and stuff. So, yeah, I thought this would be a really good episode to do, kind of like New Year's resolutions, pottery New Year's resolutions, and just to tell you really, just some four New Year's resolutions that I'm going to do in pottery. Just to support myself, to support my pottery practice, try and make things like better, easier, more enjoyable, really. So, yeah, I thought I'd tell you about them on this episode. Okay, so the first one is to be kind to myself and to try and maintain this self kindness as a standard in my pottery practice. And there's a very fine line between reflexivity, in your work, and kind of thinking about where you want to go next, or reflecting on your work and thinking, what would I like to do next time, and then being self-critical and thinking it wasn't very good, or I could do better next time, or I should be better, or whatever. Or comparing yourself to other people is also something that I think a lot of people do, especially if you're consuming a lot of content, you're looking at other people's work, and yeah, it's very easy to compare yourself to people, and that's not being kind to yourself really. So the reason I say this, being kind to myself, is that I would really like to have this kind of standard for myself where I always create a sort of safe space for me to make mistakes in pottery. So like, I have to say, making mistakes in pottery is just basically a standard part of the process. Making anything pottery never really goes according to plan. There's always times where you think you've done everything the same as you did the last time, but this time it's cracking. This time like maybe the atmosphere is different, maybe the kiln, something weird happened in the kiln, things you can't control. And things do happen, and things crack, or they go wrong, or you make something too big or too small, or you haven't joined it properly, or something, like I said, something weird happens in the kiln with color, or something you just can't anticipate. And I think in those instances, but especially because they happen so often in pottery, I think it's really important to kind of cultivate this being kind to yourself as a kind of standard. Um, so yeah, so this is what I'm doing, and I'm going to prioritize learning over perfection. So it's quite easy for me to kind of slip into the, like, it has to be perfect, or the outcome has to be perfect, and really disregard the fact that, like, through that process, if something did go wrong, I probably learned loads of things along the way. So I think this is what I'm going to be doing, in the year coming up, in the new year. I'm going to be just really reminding myself of that. Every time something goes wrong, reminding myself that I probably learned lots, and also that it's really important to cultivate that sort of kindness, that safe space to make mistakes, because that actually helps my pottery practice. It creates a kind environment for me to then grow and learn my very best in. Yeah, so that's my first one, and I'm going to try really hard to do it. I do think it's hard in pottery to kind of maintain that, like, that kind of that open-heartedness when sometimes it seems like everything's going wrong, because I've definitely had times like that before, especially like in evening classes, where you have a very defined amount of time and you have to do your part in that 3 hours or something, and then if it all goes wrong, you're like, "Well, that was a total waste of time," but it's never a waste of time, you're always learning stuff, and I think it's really, really important to, like, hold that in your mind. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to tell you about, this is my New Year's resolution number two, is to prioritize experimentation. So, yeah, I guess this is kind of similar to number one in the sense that, like, allowing yourself to learn through kind of just trying different stuff and getting things wrong and stuff like that. But experimentation in pottery is one of the things I absolutely love. Like, I love trying new things, trying to create color in different ways, new textures, trying different shapes. I find that it's really how I grow in pottery, is to really push the limits of my skills, my knowledge, kind of just try like, I do read a lot as well about pottery, but I think that it's only by really putting it in action and things going back, like experimenting, and things going maybe not according to plan or better than you expected, or just trying different things, that is really how you learn and really hone your kind of expert technique sort of thing. So I'm really going to allow myself space for experimentation, because in the past I used to think, oh, experimentation, that's kind of like that. I really want to do it and I really enjoy it, but it's kind of like the opposite of like actually just making some stuff. And so you think, oh, I really want to make some parts, and especially if you're kind of like selling your work or something, you think I should probably be just doing that. Whereas actually experimenting is, that's really how it really keeps the joy in your practice. If that's something that you really enjoy, like I really enjoy it, I think it's really going to help me to, by prioritizing experimenting, it's going to help me really keep the joy in the making process. And it's actually not the opposite of just making some stuff. It all goes into making your practice just kind of better in general, really. Um, yeah, oh yeah, I was listening to this really cool podcast episode the other day, and this really really resonated actually, because so it's a podcast called the Creative Genius Podcast, and the podcast host was interviewing an artist called Maria Over. So it's episode 49 if you're interested in listening to it, because the really interesting thing about this is that Maria Over was talking about play and how she uses her very very best energy and time, her best part of the day to actually play in her sort of creative practice. So this really got me thinking. I was like, wow. So this is like, it's almost like flipping it on its head. We've all been conditioned to think that productivity is the thing we need to be prioritizing, when actually, what if we prioritize play? What if we prioritize just playing in our creative practice? Just think of the incredible things, we could make or do, or we could even just flourish, just flourishing in general and really enjoying our practice. um if we prioritize play. So that's the really interesting to hear about, like another artist and how that is at the forefront of their work, and that is how they produce their kind of best work and just really just enjoy their life, their creative life. So, I'm interrupting this episode to tell you about a totally free guide I've made just for you, on how to make your own pottery glaze recipe. So, if you are a total beginner to glaze making and it's something you've wanted to maybe try, but you're not really sure where to start, this guide is specifically designed to take you through all the steps you need to know from start to finish, all the ingredients you need, all the equipment you need, and also how to fire your pottery glaze at the end. So, even if you're not new to glaze making and you just want a pottery glaze recipe that's very simple and specifically made with eco conscious ingredients, then this guide is also for you. So, you can get the guide in the show notes, there's a link, but also you can go on to the Oxford Clay website at www.oxfordclay.co.uk/resources for potters. Okay, let's go back to the episode. Okay, so number three is from now on, well, this year, this is my New Year's resolution anyway. They're all kind of like, let's just try it and see how it goes. Is only do the things in pottery that I absolutely love. Because I think when you have a pottery business, there are things where you might look at somebody else, their pottery business, or you might just look at like business in general. And it might seem like you have to do like, say, like all the things, or you have to be on this platform, and you have to be creating this content, or you have to be, I don't know, going to craft fairs every weekend, or um, just there's so many things you can do, you think you should be doing, but those things can sometimes take you away from the things you actually really love to do. And the things that you love to do are often the things that are, because you're generating that joy out of those things, and you really just kind of really focus in on them, they can be the things that are actually like the very, very best gift to the world. So, and they're a gift to you as well, because you're obviously like, really enjoying it as well when you're doing it. So yeah, so I was thinking, well, let's make an inventory of the things I do really, really enjoy, and then just kind of like prioritize those sort of things. So um okay, so the things I really enjoy, I love, like I was just saying to you, I love experimentation. That is something I love. And then I also love the making process. I love the making process. I love making pottery. And then I also really love sharing what I've learned. So sharing what I've learned, say like, in books, or could be blog posts, or also I love this podcast as well, sharing things I've learned with you on the podcast. So those are essentially the things which I absolutely love to do. And those are the things that are on my kind of inventory pottery joy list for this year. Okay, so this brings us on to like the fourth New Year's resolution for pottery, and that is not to rush. So I have, I have to admit, got into states before, energetic states, I suppose, to describe it, where I have been rushing, and I've been rushing trying to make pottery, or I've been rushing the kind of development of a pottery business, or I've been rushing. Production in terms of like must make more, or must make a certain way, or and it actually takes away from the joy of the actual making process for me. I find when I rush, I am not present as much. I'm not enjoying it. It's a bit, I guess it's a bit like eating, isn't it? If you're kind of rushing food, whereas if you're savoring it, you're savoring that process, it brings so much joy to you. So this is what I'm going to prioritize this year for New Year's resolution number 4, is just allowing myself time to work slowly and very intentionally and deliberately, and to be really careful with the work I'm making, and just really enjoy that process, rather than trying to think of pottery as like some kind of like ending to get to, which it's actually not. It's like if you're thinking about the end result, then it's I find it more difficult to actually enjoy the actual process of making pottery. So I'm coming back to the process. I'm coming back to just allowing myself the time it's going to take. Things are taking ages to dry. They're taking ages to dry. Nothing I can do about that. And I just need to like savor the time that it's taking, and savor the process, the making process. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So those are my New Year's resolutions in pottery. I don't know whether it would have inspired you to make some pottery New Year's resolutions, but certainly, just allowing yourself time to play, allowing yourself time to take care of yourself, not rushing your practice, not putting loads of pressure on the kind of the pot that you get at the end, and just being super kind to yourself in your learning process. These are things which I think are just really great for like, anyone doing any kind of creative practice, really, to kind of bear in mind, or just to kind of like keep in their heart as they're doing it. Because it's so hard, like I said, as a creative, or an artist, or, a potter, to be, artist potter. Potter specifically, it's very hard to keep those things in your heart when you're actually in the making process, and that's the whole reason we do pottery, is because like we love it. So um yeah. So yeah, let me just give you a quick recap of my New Year's resolutions in pottery. Maybe in like the next January, I should do a kind of like a roundup, or maybe the next December. How did it go? How did I actually stick to these? Did I did I stick to them? Okay, so number one, being kind to myself, creating a kind environment for myself to learn in, not criticizing myself, prioritizing the process over perfection, prioritizing learning over perfection, prioritizing making it a safe space for me to make mistakes. Okay, so the second one is to prioritize experimentation, to really allow myself time and space to play, to experiment, to grow in areas I want to, not to be like, well, that's a waste of time, it's not going to go anywhere, not to be, well, thank you, like voice in my head for saying that. I appreciate you, but I'm actually going to prioritize experimentation. So, then the third one is to only do the pottery things I love, to really stick to that inventory, to allow myself the permission just to do things I really, really love. And that's okay. Everybody's different in what they love, and it's okay to allow yourself just to do what you love. In pottery, especially if it's like an enjoyable creative practice, that is the whole point, isn't it? So, yeah, to bring joy into your life and to bring joy to others through the things you're doing and making, you're sharing. So, yeah, to really only do the things I love in pottery, and obviously then to share them with you, which is also what I love. So, the fourth one is not to rush. So just to really allow time for the pleasure of actually making pottery, to really bring it back down to like the making process, really savoring it, um, just yeah, allowing time for things to happen. If they just go slowly, that's absolutely fine. And just to really not put any pressure on the levels of production, I suppose is a good way of describing it. So yeah, so oh, thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and like wishing you, yeah, such a happy New Year. Whatever time of year you're listening to this, you obviously can implement New Year's resolutions any time of year. Just be always super kind to yourself in your pottery making practice. That's my number one. So yeah, and until the next episode, wishing you very, very happy potting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you next time. And take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Oh, yeah. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you're interested to learn more about eco conscious pottery or making your pottery more eco conscious and sustainable, there's so much for you on the Oxford Clay website, which is www.oxfordclay.co.uk. I can't wait to see you there.